What up boys, and welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be a different editing style than usual and a slightly longer video, as I've taken a good few weeks to prove that bots exist in Clash Royale. So if you are new around here, consider dropping us a sub before we get into this content. I post weekly Clash Royale strategy content usually that looks all cool and edited, so if you want to improve your game, I'd appreciate the sub. This video is not really going to be edited cool like that, and instead will just be some gameplay in the background that I have against bots. I'm also going to be working with two Twitch streamers, lolnopound and mathologistbrad, to give you definitive proof that bots exist and our opinions on why they exist. So expect to hear from them later in this video. Now, bots have been theorized in Clash Royale for about a year now. Boss did a video on YouTube showing that he faced two very similar players and guessed that they were illegitimate. I also showed the findings of this video to Boss himself so he could verify that we've done an okay job elaborating on what he found initially. But outside of Boss's video, nobody has really discussed this topic, and there definitely hasn't been proof that bots exist. So I started up a brand new Clash Royale account on stream and played a total of 91 games, facing 32 bots in the process. That gave me a total of 35% of my games being against a bot player, which is sort of insane. In this video, I aim to give you 100% proof that bot players exist. Brad, who I mentioned earlier, showed me a profile API that can prove any account to be a bot. But let's talk more about Boss's video before we get into that. I mentioned this video earlier, so I wanted to give ample credit to what he found almost a year ago now. He faced two players by the names of Rian and Gatto. In his video, he pointed out that these two players have one-word names, no clan, a random but similar amount of donations, and a complete noob Arena 1 deck. Now, let's think about this. Each player has a one-word name, which isn't already likely in Clash Royale. When you sign up to Clash, you're probably not just going to put your real name in that username box. I, for example, picked an edgy name that incorporated my surname. Boss also didn't use his real name. Our later feature in this episode, lolnopound, definitely hasn't used his real name. Heck, even Clash with Ash isn't called Ash. I bet a couple of you watching this video do use your real name, but it's fairly unlikely that a real person just enters their first name and uses that for their in-game name in Clash Royale. Both of the bots that Boss faced were running identical decks as well, using only cards that are unlocked in Arena 1. This is super suspicious, as most players will switch up their deck as soon as they unlock cool new cards, especially as you would have a legendary at this point in the game. Both players also had donations with no current clan. You may think they've just left their clan, but I will prove otherwise later in this video. Before we take a look at the behavior of bots in-game, let's talk about how we can recognize one right after we face them, on their profile. As I mentioned earlier in this video, I faced a total of 32 bots in just 91 games of Clash Royale. It is important to note that there are no bots above the 4,000 trophy mark. This is where the game is 100% legitimate players. From these 32 bots, 100% of them had a single named profile. 100% of them had a player tag that started with either a Q or an L. 100% of them were not in a clan. 100% of them had some random amount of donations that is above 0. These are all things that Boss looked at in his video, but I found a little bit more in the profiles than just that. 63% of bots are within 2 games of a new arena, and almost 80% of bots are within 3 games of a new arena. We'll theorize more on that later, but I think this is to do with Supercell wanting new players to reach new arenas more easily so they can feel achievement whenever they play the game. 100% of bots over level 7 have no cards in their deck, 2 levels higher than their King Tower, meaning a level 7 bot will never have a level 9 card, and so forth. So those are all quite obvious things, but let's take a look at Royale API. 100% of the bots I faced had either dropped trophies to be at the nearest trophy border, or had stayed right where I found them over the following days. Considering 80% of these bots are within a few games of new arenas anyway, it consolidates the theory that the bots are only in the game to give players easy wins when they may be at critical points within the game. However, there's one thing outside of the game entirely that gives us definitive proof that bots exist. Meet Brad. Brad is a speedrunner on Twitch and came into one of my bot hunting streams and asked me for the player tags of any bot I had found. What he returned pretty much changed the entire outcome of this video. Using the Supercell API, he was able to pull the achievement data from each of the bots. For those of you too new to Clash to remember achievements, these are what came before quests. They were super basic things like get 3 wins in a challenge or hit 2,000 trophies, and would give you a small amount of experience upon completion. Why would this old system be useful in 2020, and especially to prove bots, I hear exactly none of you ask? Well, Supercell never actually deleted the code for these achievements. Whilst they're not visible in the game anymore, your account is still continuously being tracked for completing achievements, but just isn't being rewarded when you do so. And this is important, because one of the easy achievements on the list was to join a clan. Using Brad's API, we can see that every one of these bots has donated cards and that the achievement for donating cards is still being tracked on their profile. But what we can also see is that none of the bots have ever completed the join a clan achievement. This tells us that these accounts that aren't in a clan and have a random amount of donations have never actually been in a clan. This proves that these accounts are bots, because how would a human ever manage to donate a card without joining a clan? It's impossible and proves exactly what I needed for this video. Now, knowing these accounts are most definitely bots, I reviewed the replay files of each bot account I encountered to analyze how the bots play inside of Clash Royale. The gameplay that's been on screen all video long will probably have shown some of the behaviors that I'm about to reveal. The bots tend to be super passive in how they play. Only 29% of bots put troops in the back to start a push, and only 21% of bots play units aggressively at the river. This sort of never really gave the bots a way to actually build a push, seeing as they just sort of play units in the middle of the arena. I named this middle section of the arena the bot spot, and it turns out that 96% of bots put the majority of their units in this passive zone here. This really never lets them threaten you, and makes their gameplay super passive, which I guess is intended by Supercell. This throwing of games is backed up by the fact that 95% of bots leak elixir during the game when you're close to taking down a tower. Instead of spending that elixir on defending your pushes, they legit just sit there and let you win. The only real aggression I found was with the bots below 600 trophies. These ones seemed to spam everything at the river as soon as they could, but once you reach the 600 trophy mark, the bots seem to stop doing this. I would guess that Supercell have different AIs at different trophy ranges. Although we already discussed that the majority of bots do just leak elixir to let you win, 92% of them will place a card right before they die to trick the player into thinking that they haven't forfeit. Overall, these bots seemed intentionally well coded by Supercell to make newer players believe that they are beating other real players, when in actuality, they're just getting free and easy wins to keep them playing the game for longer. Outside of these behaviors, I noticed that 70% of bots like to sacrifice their win condition on defense. Maybe this is also to give the player easier wins, but that isn't certain. 0% of the bots I faced used any emotes whatsoever, which again could relate to keeping newer players happier as they climb the ranks, or could just be because the bots aren't coded to use emotes. The final behavior I noticed was to do with spells. 87% of the bots played their spells in a sort of programmed way. This is sort of hard to explain, but hear me out. That percentage of bots wanted to play their spells onto things that were spell vulnerable. For example, they would always like to fireball musketeers and arrow skeleton armies. However, this wasn't always executed well. There are a number of times where they would fireball musketeers at 4 HP, or arrow skeleton armies that only had 2 skeletons left, or just missed the units entirely. So it felt as though they were programmed to use X spell on Y troop, but didn't have any logical thought behind it, which makes total sense for how a bot would actually run. Now, a lot of you are probably asking, why? Why do bots exist? Well, I theorized a little bit about letting players have wins around crucial parts of the game, but I think my good pal, lolnopound, might do a better job of explaining this.
Thank you very much, Bailey. Let's put bots into the context of YouTube. Now, almost all of you skipped the ad before this video. The ad was only 15 to 30 seconds long, but you skipped it. Now, while YouTube makes less money from you skipping ads, people might leave the site if they had to wait 30 seconds before every single video. And this is the same for Clash Royale. There simply cannot be 15-second pauses in between games, and bots are the failsafe to that. Getting someone to download an app is already incredibly difficult, so Supercell cannot have a ton of players uninstall the app because of waiting times. PUBG and Call of Duty Mobile both already have bots in their games to start matches sooner, so this isn't unheard of. There's even a developer called Voodoo Games who only release games with bots in them. They're advertised as being multiplayer games, but the game isn't even coded to be able to connect with other devices. You can even turn on airplane mode mid-game and still continue playing as normal. Really great programming. Anyway, Voodoo has a game called Hole.io that a lot of my friends enjoyed playing for quite a while. And the reason we loved playing it is because we were winning, like a lot. So if Hole.io was truly multiplayer, we might win one in every 20 matches? The game wouldn't be as fun, and we'd probably uninstall it a lot sooner than we did when we were winning over half of our matches. In Clash Royale, every time there's a game, someone has to win and someone has to lose. So every time a game is played, one player ends up happy, and the other player ends up sad. But a bot is designed to lose on purpose, and does not care at all about losing, because it has no feelings. So matches against bots allow Supercell to increase overall enjoyment of the game by letting players gain happiness from beating bots, without anyone having to be sad from losing. Losing multiple games in a row seems to increase your chances of finding a bot. I faced 5 bots in a row on my mini account by losing 6 games straight. If the average player loses too many matches in a row, they'll probably just uninstall and find a new game to play. So it is in Supercell's best interest to have these pity matches, where an opponent is so bad it is impossible to lose, and bots fill that role perfectly. By making sure players are never waiting too long for games, as well as making sure players never get too frustrated from losing a lot, bots allow Supercell to give a better experience to newer players.
And with all of that being said, I totally agree that shorter wait times and higher game enjoyment are positives. But what about everyone above 4,000 trophies? It's fairly obvious that a lot of us, more loyal players, are slowly getting bored of what Clash Royale has to offer. And whilst these newer players might be having a better experience, what do we get? Instead of spending time developing updates that give the loyal players a better experience, Supercell seem to have developed this secret, complex bot AI that they've sort of tried to completely hide from all of us. Again, I agree that bots are a positive addition to the game, but my only problem is that they should have never been the main priority for Supercell. Whilst the bots are just a small factor, it indicates to me that Supercell aren't afraid of adding things that help them without letting the community know why the updates have really been taking this long to come out. The only statement I could find from Supercell on this topic was a support post where they talk super ominously but do admit that bots exist. They call the bots an extension of the tutorial, and they say they're encountered infrequently with the purpose of increasing the skill level of players who are climbing the ranks. But really, this doesn't add up too greatly. I think the first 4,000 trophies, which is the equivalent of nearly 7 hours of game time, if you win every single battle, doesn't really count as an extension of the tutorial. Nor would I agree that they're infrequent encounters, with 35% of my games being against bots. And I definitely wouldn't say that they help increase the player skill level, as they are literally just free wins. As a closing statement here, I don't really mind that bots exist in Clash Royale. That is fine. What I do mind is that Supercell have tried their best to be as secretive and covert as possible about this. Just admit there are bots. Just admit they give people free wins. Just admit it's because the game is on a slow decline and you want to keep new players engaged. That would keep the community much happier than having us find it out anyway in the middle of the biggest update drought we've ever seen. I doubt Supercell will ever see this, as I'm completely irrelevant, but you should just be transparent with us, guys. It would make everyone's lives so much easier, and it would stop people trying to look for things to quote-unquote expose you on. But yeah, boys, hopefully you did enjoy this little project that I came up with. Please do consider giving a share to this video. I don't usually ask for stuff like that, but I think this information could be quite important, or maybe even useful to any Clash Royale friends that you may have. Again, big shoutouts to Pound and Brad for helping me out with this video. Their links will be in the description below if you want to check them out. But yeah, boys, thank you all for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it, and peace.